Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and we're going to have a lot of fun today because I have two artists on my program today. To one side of me in the red dress is Marian Aranyos, and to my other side in the tan-colored dress is Heather Hutchings. So, these are people I have met through the craft market at the Chautauqua Institution. They call it Artists at the Market. And it's a 3-day-a-week thing. And I'm going to start out with Marian. Now, Marian, you were telling me something the other day when we spoke on the phone about who introduced you to art.
Yes, well, thank you, Gail, for having Heather and I on the show. We really look forward to this opportunity to educating you about what we do. My father was actually the person that introduced me to art. I was one of 3 children, and we were all 13 years apart, so I was more or less by myself. He used to draw on the blackboard and show how to draw little items for holidays, like bunnies and deer and all kind of Christmas items. So I learned to draw from him, and I became interested in it. When I was younger, that my parents introduced me to art classes. So I did take art classes, Gail, at a very early age.
Oh, okay. How old were you?
I was probably between 10 and 12.
Oh, 10 and 12, okay.
Yes, and I lived in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I'm actually from eastern Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up. And the classes were on Saturdays, and they were a private art school, and I probably was 10 to 12 years old. And I would go every Saturday, and I started with simple drawing, got into painting, tried pastel and different media. So I did that probably well into senior year in high school.
Oh, okay, so you kept up your interest in it all the way through. Okay, did you say that you went to college to study art?
Well, my parents never graduated from high school. My dad was a steel worker, so they grew up, post-Depression era. And they did feel that my sisters and I, the best thing is to get an education. They were really pushing us to get an education. So back in the 70s, when I graduated high school, teaching was probably one of the careers girls would go into. It was either teaching, nursing, or secretarial. So my mother says, why don't you become a teacher and try art? So I did study art education. Now I can actually say that when I went to college, it was a teacher college, but I had to take all the academic subjects. So in that case, I had everything. And I actually graduated with an art degree, but I did not end up teaching art until I was well into my 40s.
Oh, okay. Okay, so so you went to college and you actually became a teacher, but you also studied art while you were in college.
Sort of everything, because we were told that basically we wanted to be a graduate with a well-rounded education, because you did not know what jobs would be down the road for you in the future.
You would have to take something that was available.
So you would still need to know your math and all those other
subjects.
Oh,
okay, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, I remember. I didn't even know that, because I remember my high school art teacher and the elementary one too, and I didn't realize that they had to learn all of that before they became an art teacher.
It was actually to my advantage.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it was. Okay, so so basically you started working as a teacher.
I did, and probably when you're a teacher, you don't have much time for art, but I did paint. I did a lot of working as a dabbling in watercolor, because when I was in college, probably the one area of media I really loved was watercolor. And I actually got a job after college. I was teaching GED, because I couldn't get a job. There were too many teachers out there.
Oh, so you were teaching people who were there to get
a high school diploma. So I actually taught math and English.
Oh, okay.
And then I was able to do my artwork on the side. So I would say that when I started having children and I was home with the children, I started painting a little bit. So I can actually show you one piece that I did do. This is one piece that I did when my daughter was 10 years old.
Oh, okay.
You could do a close-up of that. And this was watercolor. Oh, I gotta watch
Is
this.
that Niagara Falls?
That is actually Niagara Falls, and that is my daughter, who would have been 10 years old at the time, you know, looking through the viewfinder. So that was my art that I worked in. And again, that was really early on. And then I could actually say that my very first class I took, and I'll go over here and get this, what introduced me to the really bright watercolor was Rita Arbach from Chautauqua. And she had us do a still life, and this was in the year 2000 that I worked on this. So Rita does a lot of, I'm looking the way I'm tilting this, Rita does a lot of paintings, and she has them all through Chautauqua. So she taught me to brighten up my colors, because my colors are kind of dull. And one thing about watercolor is most people overwork it and it becomes muddy. So this was an example of how we learned to use only 4 colors of paint, and then we just learned to brighten up. So that is really what got me interested and ready to go. And then I really start on the get-go, getting interesting in art.
Yeah.
And that's how I really started to be serious about painting.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have a little chat with Heather now.
Alrighty.
And Heather is from Pittsford, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Oh, you grew
Originally
up
from Pittsburgh, and now I live in
okay.
Pittsfield. Yes,
Okay.
Pittsfield.
You moved from Pittsburgh to Pittsfield.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
About 15 years ago. and-
Yeah. Yeah, as an adult. Okay. So, you actually studied horticulture in college, and you'd like to do landscaping someday. Would you like to tell the viewing audience something about how you became interested in horticulture and landscaping? What caused that?
Absolutely, Gail. I grew up in a family of artists and musicians, and I enjoy plants. I had an internship at Longwood Gardens, which I enjoyed so much, and then I ended up out here and raising a family and using art as my therapy and just enjoying myself, getting into new kinds of arts and crafts. I grew up taking jewelry and pottery in high school, and I ended up with my horticulture degree and tried to incorporate plants and horticulture in my designs. So I always took science electives in school and decided that I really enjoyed just the horticulture aspect, but it's kind of difficult to get a job in horticulture. So
You work at a school now, don't you?
That's correct. I work at a school, and so I do this on the side for the Chautauqua Institute. I do the artist market, and Marian actually introduced me to this, which was wonderful. And so people have really enjoyed our art, and that's what keeps us going.
Well, how did the two of you get to meet each other?
We met through the Warren Art League, I believe.
The Warren
correct,
Art
Yes,
League?
when I've been in Warren probably 42 years, and we do have a group that met every Thursday of the month, the first Thursday, and it's been going on for probably 68 years.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
that's how I met Heather. And then I guess I actually, when I moved here, somebody told me about Chautauqua, and then I realized what a beautiful place it was. And I actually learned about Chautauqua through the art market. I stopped there on a Sunday and introduced myself to Sue, and she expressed interest that I could actually display there the following year. So that's what I did. And I eventually told Heather about it. And it was just a matter of gathering enough materials to sell and what to sell, which, you know, can be a little difficult, you know, when you're selling items. Mm-hmm. So that's how we got started in the Chautauqua art market.
Now, for those of you in the viewing audience, I wanted to mention that Marian seems to like to help her friends. Because she's introduced how many people to the
several,
art market?
I believe.
Wilma?
Like Wilma Fleming, Jason Oliphant, I think we have Christine Rossler. She comes up and does beach glass jewelry. She's actually a Warren County resident, but she's been doing it a longer time than
Oh,
we
yeah,
have.
she's been doing the art market for probably 25
Yes.
years or more. I don't know, so.
And one thing about the art market is, as Gail said, it's 3 times a week for the 9-week season. But those of us that live farther away, we don't come every single Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We pick and choose which days we want to come.
Well, even closer artists don't always come
Right.
every day either, depending on what
On
else
their
they
schedule.
have going on in their lives, yes.
But I mean, I could actually say that was a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
So Chautauqua, I mean, I've been fascinated with Chautauqua, so I started doing the buildings and the landscapes of Chautauqua. So my favorite building is the Hall of Philosophy. You could probably zoom in on these. The Hall of Philosophy is one of them, and people do love to buy little pieces, so I've gotten a lot smaller with things I've done. This one is one of the Athenaeum. I'm fascinated with that building too, so I actually focus on that. And these are just 8 by 10s. They're very quick sketches, and then I actually experiment with the paints. This reminds me of a study of students. Students come to Chautauqua to study. So this I did several years ago, and these are just students sitting on the lawn, Bester Plaza by the Colonnade. So that
And
is
that's,
more acrylic.
yeah, that is the Colonnade building in
Right,
the picture.
and that is
yes.
acrylic. So I did dabble in acrylic, but I'm not really pleased with my acrylics. But yet I will go back and forth. So these are slates. These are actually slates from Heather's roof, I think when she had her roof redone. And the Miller Bell Tower, that's another very popular landscape icon that people want to purchase. So sometimes they buy that. And then what my most recent, I do a lot of these little note cards. So these are original watercolor note cards. They could be framed. I did with this one of the Athenaeum. So I just pick out unusual views of these buildings. And there's another one. This is just a general one of
Just some trees.
yeah, just some trees, you know. So those are basically what I do with.
This is really cute.
And this was a little acrylic. These were actually COVID specials. We didn't have the art market in 2020, so a lot of times we artists were at home and we just did a lot of these experiments. So I call them little COVID experiments. And this is also a note card. This is acrylic paper that we do that. So.
Okay, so that's special paper for
Yes,
doing
yes.
acrylic paintings. Okay. Let's see. Now, Heather, how did you get interested in doing the particular art projects that you're working on now?
Oh, so a few years ago, I was with the MOPS group, and my girlfriend, for my birthday, gave me a kit of just a couple pieces of silk and some silk paint.
Mm-hmm.
And I let it sit in my drawer for a few years, and then right before COVID, I guess I was, just tinkering with it, and I fell in love, and it was amazing because there's so many different things that you can do with it. There's so many different styles, and it translates very well to my ideas. And then after I was done, I was thinking, oh, I'd like to replicate maybe something that I've already done. Here's one of my silk paintings. And
Yeah,
the thing
that's
is, when
that's one of your shorter scarves.
That's correct. This is a shorter scarf. And even if I try to do it this way again, I wouldn't be able to. And that's what's so interesting about art and
was
just
because
painting.
it wouldn't turn out the same.
Yeah, you can't get it to turn out the same. You can't make an exact copy, which is kind of interesting.
No plagiarism then.
No.
No risk of plagiarism.
No.
Okay. And she's got a couple of other ones laying on the table. Would you like me to stand up and hold them up for you?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. This one is quite a pretty, and actually it matches my blouse.
That's right. A lot of people are drawn to color. It will remind them of something, a memory, or maybe they'll have a particular outfit that they're, have an idea for, and they'll say, oh, that's the correct shade of purple or blue or something, and that's really neat. And I listen to my customers because some say, no gray in it. I don't want anything with gray, so then when I go home and I rework things, I kind of keep that in perspective, like what people have in their wardrobe and what I would enjoy. So it's just fun and interesting.
Okay, and then there's another one right here.
Yeah, that's one of my first ones. That's like a bamboo forest type of thing.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, I
Oh,
had an
okay.
oil painting at home.
Bamboo forest.
Yes, and I
okay.
had an oil painting at home, and I laid the white blank on top, and I used the Gouda Resist, and thought, I wonder if I can pull this off. And when I pulled it off, it didn't damage the painting, and that's how I did it. And it's a process, like batik, and it takes a while, and it's you heat set it, and then I iron it out, and I see what colors to add, and then add more Gouda and do the whole process over again. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's interesting. Yes, and I have the scarf on the front of the table as well that I did.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
That's more like a shawl in a way.
That's correct. Yeah, so I do
it's-
different sizes. I've tried silks, and I do different types of fabrics and see how the paint takes. And it's a fabric paint, and I also use a fabric dye.
Is that wool or something?
It's a blend. I think there's wool in it, but when I used the dyes on it, it really wasn't taking, and it was kind of blotchy, and the Gouda Resist didn't work. So then I did the paint on top of it. So then I started incorporating paints in the silk, with the dyes, and it becomes stiff at first, but then after wash and use and everything, it softens up. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, Heather, you've got some of your longer scarves on a rack behind us here. If you want to go over and show the different ones, that's really cute. It looks like the one way on the left there is really cute.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing that one before.
Well, I've been working on them. So when they don't sell, I take them home and I try to figure out like what would make it sell. Do they need to be brighter? Do I need to add more color? You know, some of them have a watercolor effect. I'd use less dye and just do repeated coats kind of thing. It looks like you could just do that real quick, but it really takes a long process because the dye catches, you know. So this one is very lightweight and flowy too, but when I first made it, I used some of the paints on it, and it was very stiff. So that just shows the difference between. So I have many, many more scarves that I couldn't bring, of course, and I also have sold a lot at the
Oh,
Institute,
you
which was
definitely
wonderful.
have, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
there's another one, like a take on kind of like that one that you showed with the bamboo.
Right, with the bamboo.
Yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, and I enjoy doing it. And I also have this collage.
Yeah, show your
Yeah,
collage.
so I did this out of some fabrics. There was some shirts and just really neat like Indian prints of fabric that I had. And I cut them all up and I said, oh, that kind of looks like an elephant to me. So I fabricated it together and thought, yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, it was high school. I remember one time when we were making things out of macrame. I made an elephant, and when it came time to paint it, I painted it in patches of color. You know, like the elephant was patchwork or something.
Neat. That's great.
So that was kind of fun, and I always enjoyed art class when I was taking it in school. So I still like to be creative.
Absolutely.
And so you mainly, Marian, you mainly work with oil paintings and acrylics?
I don't do any oil.
Oh, you don't do any oil,
I
okay.
basically do the watercolor. So if we go back a little bit to when I changed my style, it was, of course, when I took the classes from Rita Auerbach. At that time, it was probably the year 2000. And I had been teaching GED all those years.
Oh, wow, for a long time?
It was almost 13 plus years.
Oh, wow.
And I got hired by the school district to be a gifted art teacher.
A gifted art teacher?
It was a part-time position, and somebody pulled me and said, well, you know, you've done GED, why don't you, you know, come and be an art teacher because that's what you went to school for? I said, well, I don't know. So I was thrown into this job where I had to come up with ideas for gifted students. So I started just doing different ideas, and I had pottery, and there was a lot of work to it. And I found out when I was teaching art, I really wasn't doing my own art. So that job lasted about 7 years, and I actually did not enjoy teaching art, which is kind of surprising, which I didn't think. It was a lot of cleanup. It was a lot of cleanup, and I always liked English, so there happened to be an English position open. And I thought, well, I said, you know, I don't know, because art teachers were now being pulled, and they were actually being pulled to do computer work in the schools. Art, music, and all those special teachers were being pulled because they were worried about student scores. So what is the first class to get slashed?
Art.
Art, music, and those. So I know there was no 7th grade art, so I said, you know what, I'm going to maybe try and be an English teacher. So that allowed me, I actually got in there. First year it probably flew by the seat of my pants, but I became more comfortable. And then when we read stories or did special units, I would incorporate my art projects into the reading story.
Oh my gosh.
And I would always look for the opportunity to teach the kids how to draw trees or animals, or for example, we read Where the Red Fern Grows, and we did Billy's home. I said, what do you picture his home to be? Then we had to draw the dogs in the novel.
Yeah.
So then I began putting the art, and I really enjoyed doing that. So I taught English for 10 years. So while I was teaching English, I got more interested in doing my own art. So I started doing more of my own, and then from the watercolor, I actually took another class from a girl. She came from Hawaii. Her name was Susan Ariger Rogers, or Rogers Ariger. She came and taught a workshop at Chautauqua, and she came to Warren State Hospital, and a bunch of us set up and signed up for this class, and she brought dye baths, tissue papers, and newsprint. So what she did is she had us create this type of work. This was called a tie-dyed collage. And this collage, you actually took the tissue paper, laid it in a dye bath, rolled it between newsprint, and then you pulled all these papers out, had to let them dry. And then the next week we came back and we start laying out the papers. So now we were painting, but with papers. So this is a piece that has all dyed tissue in it. This is the newsprint, and you actually have to cut out with a knife, like your trees and all your fine, delicate details. So this is actually the Waterworks, I guess it's called the Waterworks Lighthouse. It's at Presque Isle State Park. It's not an actual lighthouse, but it's Waterworks, and it's a tin structure, and it has now since been removed. And I think they're refurbishing it. So this takes a lot of time and effort, and you can use like a Mod Podge or a gloss medium, and then when you're done you varnish it, like with a permanent varnish, so it actually is permanent. You could leave this out in the rain and nothing will happen to it. So that was kind of fascinating, that I actually chose to do that. And I really got into a lot of collages, and I sold a lot of those. You know, so I sold a lot of those different things. And then in the meantime, people wanted my note cards, which would be, I got into doing landscapes of Warren, where we live, and people were always interested in little paintings of the landmarks in Warren, the downtown, the courthouse. For example, this is the church overlooking near Beatty School where I taught. And these I would get printed up by a printer, and then I would sell these. And then I started getting more confidence in selling my artwork. These originals have since sold. So now I really go between, Gail, watercolor and collage, and sometimes I just experiment.
I like the way these look.
Well, and of course the thing is with the matting, I think a lot of artists do a lot of nice artwork, and probably Heather can agree on this, but it's how do you display it to sell it? Like you may need to get a special frame for it, and where do you buy frames? Well, we have Michael's, we have Hobby Lobby, Craft World was wonderful, and then Craft World closed. So it became harder to get materials. So then you could do things like this where it doesn't require a frame. And again, this piece is an interesting piece that I did. This was when I had to go to Virginia about 5 years ago. My sister was ill. She had surgery. I didn't have anything with me. I didn't have any material. So I went on the beach. She actually lives on the beach. And I picked up some beach stones. Not really much glass down there in Virginia Beach. And I picked up twigs and the reeds, and all I had was a magazine, or like, I think it was a magazine, and I tore up the magazine, and I started gluing it on with glue. I think she did have glue, and then I cut out other parts of the magazine for the fins, and picked up some seashells. So this I threw together just by what I found on the beach. So that's a whole other type of collage.
It was something you were helping. You were there to help your sister.
Yes, but I needed something to do.
You needed something fun to do while you were there. So you made that, and
so that's interesting. But as Heather said, and I agree with, a lot of times it's your therapy. It's your way to express yourself, and that's what artists do. They come up with all different new ideas. So I think an artist has to evolve. Like, you just can't stick to the same thing. We sometimes branch out and try something, even though we may not be good at it. We try it. So I prefer to do the watercolor, my acrylics. I feel I make too many mistakes, but yet sometimes something will come out good. Now, you'd be surprised to know that some artists don't keep everything that they have. A lot of stuff ends up in the trash can. Would you say so, Heather?
You mean you don't put it out to sell either, because you don't feel that it's up to snuff.
Right, or there's mistakes that we see, but you may not see. So watercolor paper is very expensive. That's probably the most expensive of the watercolor, and the tubes, of course. So sometimes I take a piece out of a frame, look at it, say, I don't like it, flip it over, and use the back side and create another piece.
Yeah, when I had a couple of friends of mine on a few months ago, they're vegan, and I have them come on to do vegan food demonstrations, and the topic the last time they were on was vegan picnic food. But then they also went on to show what other kinds of things they bring with them on a picnic, and they bring paper to draw pictures on, maybe a tree or something that they see while they're on their picnic, and things like that. And then they were having like postcards. It's like a mother and daughter that come on together, and the daughter was showing us postcards that she had made out of junk mail.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's a big...
So it's like my little boxes that I make out of used greeting cards.
Yes, that's called recycled art and collage, because now I think there's a few people at the Chautauqua Art Market that I know. We have that, I think it's Mandy. She makes her journals, and she uses different materials.
She uses vintage.
Yes, papers.
Some vintage... she'll buy old books and use them to make into other things, journals and little notebooks and things that people can buy from her.
And that's what's interesting even about Heather's collage. I mean, you just think of the materials you find, and that's where the creative expression comes in. You just said, oh, I'm going to throw this together. And I think... well, you'll get into that later about how we grow and learn in our art.
Yeah, well, when I was making, at one point in time, I was making a lot of gemstone bead jewelry, and I would notice that, different people could use the same beads that I did and come up with things that were totally different from what I did with the same beads. So nobody's, even if you work with the same mediums, nobody's artwork is going to look the same. Everybody's is going to be different from everybody else's. So anyway, Heather, you make felted soaps. Well, anyway, I'll let you describe it. But I mean, now to begin with, soaps that have been felted with wool, there's a reason for doing that, for felting the soaps?
Yeah, so some people claim that it makes the soap last longer, and you'd have to keep it dry once you're finished using it. And you don't take it out of this, you just use it as this and suds it up with the water, and it comes right through. And so it has natural antibacterial and antimicrobial properties from the wool.
From the wool, okay.
Yeah, and then you can just, make designs on it. I mean, people have an ooh factor. You can still smell it through there.
It smells almost like maybe some melon or something.
Yeah, that particular one. Yeah, so I've experimented with different soaps. Some soaps last longer than others. I prefer to get them at TJ Maxx. They have a nice selection of soaps there. And I like to get the big bars too because they last longer. So that's one of my newest ventures with the art, though.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so they last longer, and it has antibacterial and antimicrobial.
That's correct.
I know that some people that I know like to wear wool clothing, and they tell me that if you're wearing wool clothing and you get wet out in the rain or something like that, it still feels warm.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that before. Well, let's have you show some more of the rest of the bars of
Oh, sure.
soap there, because you've got some really pretty
Oh, thank you.
patterns on them.
Yes, and so first I take the raw wool, and that's been carded and everything, and I wrap it up on the bar of soap, and then I stick it in a nylon stocking, and then I pull it tight and use agitation, and the fibers fuse together. So that would make it look maybe like this.
Okay, so the wool is not, it hasn't been spun into yarn or anything. It's
No, it looks similar to this, but a little, more fluffy. And so as it dries, the fibers kind of fuse together, and then it gets tighter around the soap. So
okay. Okay, and then you do something to make the colorful patterns.
Well, I buy different types of wool that have been colored. Yes. So I found, and that's the thing with COVID too. I've had a hard time finding distributors that that have the colors for me, because just things are becoming hard to find. And so I've been to Pittsburgh. I found a distributor in Warren that's local, so that's really nice.
That one that has, I'm seeing a
Yes.
flower on it.
Oh yeah, so I do like flowers and designs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really pretty.
Oh,
the
thank
ones
you.
with the ones with the flowers. Show them that other one with the orangey.
This one. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
that one is really cute.
Thank you. That's a little more flat. Some of them are fluffy, but I take a felted needle that have little barbs on them, and I stick it through, and that's what gets it to adhere to that. But just doing the normal processing, I wrap it around, and then I put the stocking on and have it hot water so it kind of felts it down, and then keep adding more and more so you don't see the soap through it. So it's
Yeah.
a fine line, yeah.
Well, you also, I guess you didn't bring any maybe, but you also do paintings on some of the slate, like Marian does.
Yes, I do. I dabble in that. She was bringing paintings today, so I decided to stick with the fiber and the for today. Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so, yeah, okay, so you paint on rocks though, too.
I paint on rocks. Yeah, I paint on anything I can get my hands on.
Okay, so the people have been buying the rocks from you then?
That's correct. Yes,
You
I sold
know-
2 rocks this year.
Okay, so that's pretty good, because it's like a work of art.
Yes.
Is the reason they are willing to buy them.
Right. Well, I tell them-
There's the paintings on it. And do you do something to the rocks to keep, so the paint doesn't wear off?
No, I haven't yet. I use paint pens for the rocks, and I put them in the garden, and they've been rained on, not snowed on yet, but they've been rained on all season, and nothing's happened. They haven't chipped or anything. So.
Oh, okay. I just wondered about that.
Right, if I
just
seal it or
wondered.
something.
Yeah.
No, I haven't
yeah.
yet. Yeah, but I take them in during the winter time, of course.
Oh, okay.
know.
You don't leave them out in
No,
the
I
winter.
wouldn't leave them outside. No, there's just, we get too many
Yeah.
harsh conditions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, Marian. What advice would you give to people who want to start learning the kinds of art that you do?
That's a good question, because sometimes artists are afraid to go out of their comfort zone. They'll say, oh, I can't do that, or I don't know how to use that medium. I believe when you see workshops offered, or any kind of art session that you want to participate in, you should take advantage of it. The Warren Art League used to bring in guest speakers. Now we started actually bringing in people that would show a technique. So maybe one month somebody will come in and do collage with papers and acrylic, or I may come in and say, well, let's do a quick watercolor lesson, and some people get frustrated with it and never try it again. But we've been really doing a lot of collage lately, different materials, the torn papers. I brought in a big bag full of the torn papers, and we just experimented with it. Again, I was so happy to take that Rita Arbach's class, because that really pushed me into expanding into brighter colors and bolder colors in my artwork, and that's how I'm noted for my colors. Sometimes people just tend to paint what they see, and it may be dull and boring, but you could jazz it up, and that's what Rita taught me to do. That collage class I took with that Susan Arager, she just said, you know, don't be afraid to use different papers and dyes. And then recently, about 3 years ago, there was another Susan G. Antonio from Houston, Texas. She actually came up to this Mayville depot. She rented the depot for about 3 or 4 years. And we would go up there, and she would have these watercolor sessions. And you could come up as much as you wanted. They were usually Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. And she rented the depot out, and we had people that would visit Chautauqua for the season and would come and take classes. And she told us how to loosen up. Don't work so tight. Don't, you know, make every little tree limbs. And she taught us to even paint with a stick. And I don't have that painting with me because I have since sold it. We just put a wash of color. It was a sunset of Chautauqua. And then we painted with a stick. And we thought, oh, a stick, really? But it actually worked. So I think you can't be afraid to experiment. A lot of now, people can look on Pinterest. They can look and get ideas here and there. But you could still take it and experiment yourself. And mixing media is often, you know, tricky to do. Like, I just experimented, like you might want to say, what are we doing lately, like to expand ourselves. So this piece over here, this actually is just done with, I like birch trees, so I actually took masking tape. I took masking tape and laid out the masking tape where the trees are. And then from there, I just painted my wash over it. And then I put a little detail. This is supposed to be our Hickory Street Bridge in Warren. And I just did what I normally do. And then I peeled off the tape. So when I peeled off the tape, you leave the white paper underneath. And a true watercolor does not use white. You have to let the paper show through. You could never use white. It's like a no-no. You know, if you get a white tube in your watercolor set, throw it out. You're not supposed to use it. That's only for acrylic. So actually, I pulled the tape off, and then I took an oil crayon to suggest the striations and the line in the birch tree. So I really started doing this. Trees now are fascinating. A lot of people like trees. And I actually sold a piece at Chautauqua of trees, but it was done in all paper. And that I don't have with me. It was sold, of course. This woman was fascinated. One of the trees had a ticket from the Biltmore Estate. One tree had a road map in it, and the other one had music paper in it. I just tear up the music paper, you know, when you don't want to play piano anymore, and you start using it in your collages. So this is more of a watercolor and a mixed media. And then this is just an experiment using recycled papers. We talked about recycled papers. And this I just started doing. There's my musical paper again. I love to use road maps. I could use train tickets, bus schedules. This is actually magazine papers and the inside of your mailing envelopes when you get the bills in the mail or all that stuff you throw out. This is actually the inside. So again, this has to either be cut with a scissor or a utility knife, and that takes time. That takes a lot of time. And again, the matting is the key. I used to do matting for people, but now I can't buy mat board anymore. Yes, I could get it in the mail, but prices have gone up, and then it comes dog-eared, and it's getting harder to find the materials locally anymore. So basically, I still go and find frames and recycle them. I think we all do that. So I think an artist cannot be afraid to experiment and try different things. And even if you don't like it, it ends up in the trash. I could still remember going back to my college days. I would come home from class and I would throw things in the trash. And one of my hallmates, she would go through that trash can and pull them out of the trash. She would actually pull these. She said, "Marian, why are you throwing those away?" I said, "They're experiments. They're not good." I don't know what she ever did with them, but I used to laugh, you know. So a lot of things we still throw away, or we may just, you know. redo it. You know, sometimes I have actually painted over acrylics. I painted over things I don't like and then painted something totally different on it. I mean, we can do that because sometimes you just get an idea and go from there.
Well,
So-
you've done pictures of some of the houses over at Chautauqua.
I
haven't
have,
you?
and there again, I mean, it takes a lot of detail, and sometimes you really don't want to do them because it's a lot of tedious work, and you're thinking, well, is it going to come out to the satisfaction of the owner or someone? So sometimes people will say, oh, you need to paint the octagon house, or you need to do this this house here or that, and then Heather and I will run around the grounds after the art market, and we'll take pictures, and we'll try to get some interesting views. But you know, sometimes you get tired of that too. So this last year, I would say it was a good year at Chautauqua. Last year I didn't have as many sales. This year people were coming back, and I sold things I never expected to sell. Sometimes you think you're going to sell something, they'll say, well, we don't have room for it, or I have so much art in my house, you know, but they'll buy the little card. So I think Heather would agree is finding a variety of things to sell, because people that come may have only a suitcase, or they come by plane. They don't have room to take home a big painting. So that's what we have to think about.
Yeah, that's true. People come from not only all over the country, but people show up from foreign countries
Right.
also that come to Chautauqua, and they're going to be flying
Right.
back to where they came from. So there was a picture, I should have told Heather to bring it. She was saying you had painted 3 pictures that Heather was in.
Oh,
And
of Chautauqua?
you were going to give her, you let her pick from 3, I think it was.
Oh, yes.
And she's telling me, she goes, what one do you think I should pick? And I'm looking at them, and the one with her running into the Chautauqua bookstore, holding the hat, having her hand on her hat, holding it on, and I said, that's the one that looks the most like you, you know. So that was the one she wound up picking. You
Did
know?
I end up selling it?
I have that one, the Chautauqua.
You gave
Okay,
her
I might
that?
have
Yes.
2, because I know I did several, and that was the day that we ran around taking pictures, and I wanted a person in the pictures because sometimes it's interesting to have a person in the pictures. And I think I do have one of Chautauqua here somewhere. I'll have to look
I think
for
you
it.
have one of
Do
me
I have
in
one
here
back
somewhere.
here?
Yeah.
I might. I'll have to pull it. And I think somebody bought the one, and Heather says, well, I wanted that one. I said, Heather, I'll do another one. But I did do a picture of the Hall of Philosophy with you and Tina walking, and I did it all in paper. And
Oh.
I had that up there at 4 or 5 different times I was at Chautauqua. Nobody bought it. It was just a tiny little piece, done all in paper. There was a bus schedule, magazines in there, tissue, and some woman came by, I think the last week of Chautauqua, and she says, I do collage myself, but she did it on greeting cards. She made greeting cards. But she says, I'm fascinated with this because I do collage, and she bought it. And I said, where do you live? She says, it's going to Houston, Texas. So it's kind of neat when you know that people are all over the country, and they're going to say, well, this one's going to my place in Florida, this one's going to Michigan. And that's what's kind of exciting about coming to Chautauqua. I enjoyed the people as much as I do selling the art. Because
yeah,
people,
definitely,
you'll ask
definitely.
them, is this your first time? How did you fall in love with Chautauqua? And I know when I first moved here from Eastern Pennsylvania, I didn't even know about Chautauqua. And somebody says, go up there. And once I saw what was up there and how peaceful and serene it is, I
Most
thought,
of the
wow,
time.
you know, I'm going to try to get up there. Well, most of the time. But anyway, I think
So-
it's really nice because people try to describe what it is. Somebody gave me a little button here. It says Chautauqua is a state of mind, because people said, how do you describe Chautauqua? Well, it's a summer community of religion, culture, opera, music, theater, dance, spiritual. It's
Lifelong
like
learning.
lifelong learning, and it's really a really peaceful, relaxing type of setting, and a lot of people just come. We just like to walk around the grounds, and I know we sometimes just sit on the porch with our lunch and sit on the porch of the Athenaeum and just sit out there and chat. But we did have, I don't think we had a paint session up there. We end up just walking around and doing other things, but I think that's what our art league tries to do in the summer. We do have some in plein air painting, but we end up eating and chatting and doing other things, or going in somebody's pool. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Somebody's pool?
Well, that's Pat Urbanic. She's our copper lady. She actually has a pool, so we end up.
Oh, really? Somebody that has their own place
Yeah, so,
over there.
you know, you do bring your sketchbooks, but, you know, you may sketch her garden. She has a beautiful garden. So we do that. We try to do these outdoor settings. But, you know, again, I think it's important that if there's an opportunity to take a class, do it. Try it. You may like the media, and you may just take it home and throw it away and say, well, I'll try something else next time.
And you can try different kinds of things and see which one you like the best too. But anyway, Heather, what kind of advice would you give to people who might be interested in doing the things that you do?
Well, yes. So there's all kinds of videos on YouTube. You can just Google like how to make felted soaps. You know, if you use portions of that, you know, they'll come up. And also with the silk painting, same thing. I mean, I taught myself how to do it, so I don't know what the proper way is, but I think everyone does things differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no two people's artwork is going to look identical.
Yes, and even with my soaps, people say, did you make the soap inside? Well, I have made homemade soaps before, but I'm afraid to do it by myself until, you know, I take more classes. I've taken a few classes, but it's so volatile. I'm like, So I would like to take classes and learn how to do homemade soap. That way I would have that in there, and I know, you know, how the soap was made, and, you know, so that's a great thing. I think also, just getting in groups with your friends and, you know, doing some crafting. Maybe they have something that they can teach you, and, you know, like in our Chautauqua artists group,
Right.
we did the beading of the shirts, and I would have never thought to do that, and that was so easy, and I'd like to do it again, you know, so it's really neat. Now, I was going to go back to what you said about Chautauqua, taking pictures and everything.
Yes.
I love that, you know, just being up there, and when I sell my art, especially like a painting or my slate, and they say they're going to have it on the grounds. It's just,
neat.
it makes me
Yeah,
feel
it
great
does.
knowing that my things are going to be, you know, hanging up in someone's room or something.
Right, and
it'll be
here's this
staying there.
last one I did, but this may not look like you as
Oh, here we go.
as good as it did.
Here we can zoom in
The
on
bookstore one, she has, Heather wears her hats, and sometimes we do wear hats at Chautauqua, and she drapes her scarves around the hat too. So, but
I've
as
got a
I
hat on
said,
in that one.
That is supposed to be Tina in you, so
Oh,
you look
okay, so
totally
there's,
different.
yeah, Tina
So,
and then me.
as I said, they're walking, and I'm just
That's
taking this
great.
Hall of Philosophy at all
I thought that
different
was me in
angles.
that picture, so
That
you
is
just
you,
sneak me in there.
But that's another thing I was going to discuss, Gail. The biggest thing that people ask is, how much do you sell your work for? And that is probably the most troubling question for artists, because it's going to depend on your media that you work in and how fast you work or how slow you work and what you charge yourself per hour. Well, if you ask an artist what they charge themselves per hour, they might say, well, I never thought about that. But when I sell artwork, you have to price according to what you want to get for that piece. Now, most places you exhibit will ask for commission. So commissions can vary from 20% as high as 50%. These big galleries that you see, and a lot of them have since closed due to pandemic, they will ask for 50% commission.
Right,
So
right.
if I want $100 for a piece, I have to sell it for $200. Well, are you going to buy it at that gallery for $200 if you know you can probably buy it at Chautauqua, and I will give 20%? Or is it 25? So now,
yeah.
when we go to the Chautauqua Art Market, we give 25% of our sales to the Women's Club for the scholarship funds, which is good. I mean, that scholarship money is used for any students coming to Chautauqua to study art, music, dance, theater, whatever they're studying. So then we price our work accordingly. So I price my work, and I say I charge myself $20 an hour. They'll say, well, $20 an hour. So they're saying, well, what are you going to charge for this? Well, I could whip this out in a half hour. You'll say, oh, no, you can't. Well, what I'm doing, I've done this Hall of Philosophy, so I sketch it first. So the sketch may take 10 minutes. And again, it depends how much you want to sketch. Now, a watercolor piece, you're allowed to let pencil show. That is one rule of watercolor, that you can let your pencil mark show. So I may do a quick sketch, and I'll let the paint do the rest of the work. So this may take me a half hour. So do I sell it for $10? Do I sell it for $20? Well, I have to consider my commission. Now, somebody would say, oh, but you should charge more for your artwork. So do I want my artwork high-priced and sitting in my closet, or do I want you to take it home with you as a memory of Chautauqua? So it's a debatable issue. I mean, you just say, well, I may want to get rid of some of my inventory, but yet I want to make it affordable. So I may sell this for $24. Okay, now why 24? Well, I divide it by 4. 4 times 6 is 24. So then I'll only get $18 for that. So that means I will have to do this within under an hour. Okay, and then you have to think of your frame. Well, you could buy a cheap frame, you could buy an expensive frame. Sometimes you could sell it without a frame, and some people will change the frame. So there's a lot of factors involved. Now, a collage that I will cut out and have to work with the materials, I may have to charge over $100 for it. And even then I may not get my money for it, because Heather and I talked about this. You talk about your materials and what goes into your scarves, what goes into this. How much are my paints? I mean, an artist has to really sit down and think about what you are spending to make that piece, what do you want back from it. So at the end of the year, when I add up all my taxes, I may come out to making $100 or $40. I may say, oh, well, I forgot about my gas, I forgot about my dues, I forgot about my workshop fees, I forgot about the postage when I ship something. So there's so many things to think about. So does a more expensive piece in a gallery always mean it's a better piece? I don't know, Heather, maybe you could answer that question. How do you price your work?
Well, I wanted her to show the hat because
yes.
she.
Well, I was going to end with
That's
that.
another story. They may want the hat and not the scarf.
Yeah,
That happened too. My scarves. Somebody wanted to buy the scarves.
Yeah, they quite often people will want to buy the artist's props.
The display.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Like if a person sells jewelry and they're using, they have to have a mirror because
Yes, that happens.
you have to be able to have the people try the jewelry on.
Right.
Yes.
Then somebody might come along and ask you, are you selling these? And they'll be
Yes.
referring to the mirrors.
Right.
you
Yes,
know.
I think that happened to 1 or 2 of our artists. Said, "Well, I want the mirror," and somebody wanted my scarf, one of the scarves, and I got it from a friend for my birthday. And then another scarf a woman got from Europe. She wanted the scarf. She didn't want any painting, just the scarf. I said, "I'm sorry, that's my display," but it's funny what people.
Well, I tell them I'll sell anything. Whatever I have displayed. You want to
and
buy
your
that?
you and your mannequin.
Even
your
that,
mannequin.
even that dresser drawer you bring with you to
Yes.
display your soaps out of, you know,
Well, it is mahogany, so.
it's mahogany.
Yes. Well, and that too, Gail, takes a lot of work. You have only so much of a table space when you go. So if you're giving a 12-foot table, you think, okay, how am I going to arrange this? So a lot of times it takes us a good half hour to set up. Can we use an easel? Can we use a prop? Can I use what I find, Oh, I forgot my tablecloth. There's a lot to think about.
Well, think how long it must take for Ann Jackson to set up the
Right.
stuff she and
Yes.
her husband make. I mean, they have a huge inventory of their wooden and beadwork items.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Nice,
yeah, very,
Right.
very, very nice work
Yes.
that they do. And she has been on Fresh Perspectives with their things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so everybody knows where to find us at Chautauqua, correct?
well,
The farmer's market is.
well, it's where the farmers market is in the mornings on Monday through Saturday, and it's not far from the main gate. It's
Right, it's to
quite
the right.
quite close to the main gate, and oh gosh, what else can I say about it? Yeah, it's kind of like it's in an old brick building that has garage doors on it. So it must have, I think at one time it housed fire trucks or something like that.
It's
wasn't
near where
it?
the buses are. It's actually the bus office is there. And there is a sign that says Chautauqua Farmers Market. So it is open for the vegetables, I believe, Monday through Saturday?
Monday through Saturday from 7 in the morning till 11 in the morning. And then the artists at the market is Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Wednesdays and Thursdays it's open from 1 in the afternoon until 4 in the afternoon, and on Sundays it's open from noon until 4.
Right.
So,
And the great thing about that is they don't have the same artist every day.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
important.
Every week it's usually different people, and some people go all the time. You go quite often, right?
About twice a week.
Twice a week.
Twice a week, yeah.
And then people get to know your stuff and they come in just to see you. That's great, yeah.
You know, and not only that, but if somebody buys something from you and they go away looking really happy,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, it feels really good.
It does.
It feels
It
really,
does.
really good. And then the artists' amount that they pay to the women's club goes to help
Scholarships.
it's for the scholarship
Yeah.
fund for young people that want to come to Chautauqua to study the arts but can't afford to. So and that means a lot
It's a good
Yes.
to
cause.
those
It's a good
people
cause.
also. You know, I mean, I know if somebody had done that when I was a teenager or something for me, you know, it really would have meant a lot to me.
Right, so it's interesting because I usually tell my customers that I'm not here every week, but I always give them a business card and I say, if there's anything you want, call me, because people have called me at Christmas time and say, do you have a picture of the Hall of Philosophy? And I can
That's a
mail
great
it.
idea.
And I think the
Yeah.
last day I was at the market this year, a woman, I didn't even know she was looking at a piece. She never told me she was interested, and then she saw Heather the next day. You went 2 days in a row. And she says, oh, where's Marian? There's a piece I really love. But she didn't ask me that day if I was going to be back. She just assumed I'd be back. So when you do come through the art market, know that it's not always going to be the same artist each time you come. So if you're there for the week, Sunday through Thursday, as Heather said, some you may see 3 times, some 2, some once, or some not at all. So, you know, and I could put it in the mail too. So, you know, that's another thing. So make sure you check us out next year. You know, we'd love to see you.
Yeah, and if there's a certain artist that's not there on a certain year because they're not able to be there that year because maybe they're having some personal problems or something, I know that people will ask for them, and you know, the advice to give them is, if you see something you like, buy it while you've got the chance.
Yes, because
If
it may
you
not
see
be
something
there.
you really want, you may not have another. You may not have another.
That's right. But
another
we're all friends.
chance.
I gave that woman Marian's number, so she's
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I did years ago before they had the big art in the park. I did have 2 people fight over a piece, and one had to go home and get money. And you know, the rain was coming, so I had to give this picture away. It was the Good Shepherd Church, and it was gone. So I guess we have to wrap up soon, don't we?
Yes, in half of a minute. Yes. So I did wanted to say that I really appreciate the 2 of you being willing to do an episode
Thank
of
you so much.
Fresh
Yes.
Perspectives.
Thank you, Gail,
Oh,
and
you're
thank you for coming.
welcome.
Yes, thank you,
And-
Gail, for inviting us. It was fun.
you're welcome. Yeah, so maybe people who see you on this episode of Fresh Perspectives might actually think they want to come looking for you next summer.
That'd be great.
So,
That'd be great.
So anyways, and we've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives, and I'll see the rest of you in the viewing audience when I'm here for the next episode. Unfortunately, not down here in Pennsylvania, but they want to. They can tell their friends to go on the internet and watch it. I mean, not until after it airs the first.